All right, let's move on to the legislation that is in the House today. It could ban TikTok in the U.S. over concerns that the social media app is a threat to national security, given its ties to China. Emily Wilkins is in D.C. and brings us the latest. Emily.
Hey, David. Well, yeah, in less than an hour now, the House is expected to not only vote, but to pass a bill that would give TikTok an ultimatum, either divest from Chinese parent company ByteDance or be banned in the U.S. But while the bill sped through the House, the road ahead is going to get tougher for this piece of legislation. TikTok has ramped up lobbying efforts against the bill, and the CEO, Shouzi Chu, is expected to be in D.C. this week for meetings. Now, dozens of video creators on TikTok met with lawmakers yesterday, and they also held a press conference with a handful of progressive lawmakers who oppose the bill, including Maxwell Frost, who said the roughly 6-month window that TikTok would have to find a new owner under the legislation would not be enough time.
It's unreasonable to believe that in 180 days that a buyer will be found and that the deal can move forward, which would result in TikTok being banned. Whether it's banned for a year or 2 years or 6 months, a ban is a ban.
The bill also lacks a clear path in the Senate right now. I spoke with senators yesterday, and they told me that they share the national security concerns that the House has, but they've got some other issues that they're worried about. These include things like freedom of speech, whether the bill singles out and punishes TikTok in an unconstitutional way, and the ramifications of getting rid of a popular app among 170 million American users. Congressman Mike Gallagher, who chairs the House Select Committee on the Chinese Communist Party and is one of the bill's main backers, has said that this bill has been tailored to avoid past pitfalls to other bans on TikTok, such as measures that are too targeted against a single company.
What our bill is a regulatory framework. It is prospective for companies that are controlled by a foreign adversary. It's a regulatory framework, not a punitive framework, and therefore I think any concerns over a bill of attainder simply don't obtain in this case.
Senators also told me that they're waiting to see what the House does before taking a closer look at the bill. So this is going to be an interesting vote to watch. If nearly all House members support the bill, we're not expecting it to be unanimous, but it could be close. The pressure is really going to be on the Senate to act. David?
Thank you, Emily. Emily Wilkins in D.C. And, of course, an interesting journal story today about how perhaps the company may have been surprised at just how swiftly this effort was undertaken, somewhat furtively as well. So it sort of was a surprise. They kind of thought they were in a good place when President Biden, for example, joined TikTok around the Super Bowl. I continue, Mike, to just focus on what would it mean if it actually happened? How do you do this? You know, you have enormous amount of potential value here in the U.S. in terms of TikTok and what it means to the parent company ByteDance, though, frankly, ByteDance has an enormous business in China, don't forget. And it's easy to say, well, you'd have to just divest it or close it down. Much harder to do. And, again, the source code and the algorithm, they're not going to go along with this thing. And so it just becomes a very interesting but difficult dance if, in fact, this actually is something that gets passed. Obviously, it also will be challenged in the courts, so who knows when it would actually have to occur.
Yeah, it is kind of amazing in that sense. And also, you know, there's even a sense out there. I mean, have they made the case about the national security threat, specifically in terms of the harvesting of data, the use of user details, or is it just, look, this is a channel through which hostile actors have propagated messages, and the Chinese authorities maybe can have some sway. So whether that matters or not, probably not for the vote, but
maybe not for the vote. But it's not clear that they have made that case. I don't think, Carl. I'm not aware of specific instances they've cited where there has been potentially Chinese control. That said, of course, it's something you're not going to see most likely if it's done well.
Although Sorkin tried to get it out of Cruz in the last hour on Squawk, saying, do you have evidence, even classified, that you can just share generically about risk and hard to get? By the way, comment from the Chinese Foreign Ministry spokesperson saying this kind of bullying behavior is used when one can no longer win fair competition. The U.S. will only hurt itself. Their essential argument is that this is going to erode confidence of international investors in deploying money in the United States.
Yeah, I mean, one of the retributions, if you want to call it that. At some point, ByteDance will go public. It certainly won't be here in the United States, one would imagine. It would be in Hong Kong. And, by the way, it would be one of the largest single IPOs. We've talked about the fact that the company most recently valued, or at least trading in that secondary market that existed, about $220 billion, but that may be quite low, given how much cash they have, the 25+ billion that I'm told in operating income this company has. Yeah. I mean, you can think about a multiple there in terms of what this thing really may be worth. Even a 10-cent multiple gets you to an enormous value, one of the most valuable private companies in the world by far.
Well, look for that vote beginning at 10 a.m. Eastern before the House GOP goes to their retreat.